Call the Personnel and Finance Committee to order. Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Flag, United States of America, and the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can I get a motion to approve the amended agenda?
So moved. Second.
Motion made by John, seconded by Mike. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
It was Bob.
Oh, it's Bob, sorry.
That's right. I got it.
Okay, we need a, first on the agenda is consideration of a developers agreement with Titan Industries.
Mhm.
Chad?
So in your amended agenda, you'll find a memorandum and then also a copy of the draft, the developers agreement that we've been negotiating with Titan Industries for the last couple months. As of Monday, they did agree to the terms that we came together with in this agreement. Just in a nutshell, the agreement requires or commits the developer, which is Titan, to a project construction cost of $1.7 million for their expansion on their current facility on Industrial Loop Road. In lieu of that, we've negotiated that in the developers agreement, the city will contribute $140,000 towards that project. This is under half. We expect to receive over $300,000 in increment for this project. So during our negotiations, half of that would be 150, but we've negotiated it on 140. The reason being we're a little bit less on half of the increment, which we've done before. They wanted a little bit more upfront costs. So usually we were doing a 50-50 split. They asked for a little bit higher percentage upfront, but then lower overall, which we thought was acceptable in the end. So that's kind of the terms in a nutshell of this agreement compared to some of the other agreements, because we've been trying to keep a 50-50% share, 50% to the developer, 50% to the city for public improvements in the area. Our portion is going to be used primarily for the development of the stormwater ditch that's over by Enterpipe. We need to look at repairs to that ditch because it is eroding. Plus, we've got issues with the culvert that supplies that stormwater from the Titan property underneath the ditch. So we're going to use that primarily to fix that. And then seeing how the increment shapes up, we can use the rest of it for pretty much patching in the road for on Industrial Loop Road. It's a concrete road, so we would do concrete patches as needed with that. But in a nutshell, that's the kind of the ins and outs of the developers agreement with a lot of other language to protect the city. So the timing for all this, we do not have TID number 6 officially fully created yet. So the joint review board will be having their meeting at 6 o'clock on May 17th before the council meeting, provided that they do approve the TID at that meeting. The council meeting will follow that. And then at that time, we would consider for approval the developers agreement. If for some crazy reason, the joint review board does not approve TID number 6, then it would be my recommendation at the council meeting, obviously not to approve the developers agreement because we won't have their increment, but I don't see that as a problem at this point in time. So.
Did any of the work they have to do have anything to do with when Hillshire went through there? With their, in the ditch?
Totally two separate, nothing to do with this project at all. Tyson had to install a force sanitary sewer main or force water main from their sanitary sewer plant to discharge into the Wolf River, which is
Have any?
nothing to do with this project, nothing to do with the TID. They had to do that all on their own.
Okay.
And nothing to do with that stormwater ditch.
That's
that we need
what
to
I was
repair. Yep.
talking about, yeah.
Yeah, nothing to do with either one.
Okay.
So I guess I'm asking the committee to make that recommendation to council.
To make that recommendation.
I'll second that. Motion made by Bob, seconded by John. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
You gotta get Steve Grote and the mayor
yeah.
online.
Aye.
Mayor Marcus, aye.
Aye.
All right. Motion carried. Next is approval of agreement with Johnson Block for the final accounting of ER TID number 1. Judy?
Okay, speaking of TID districts, our ER TID district number 1, over by the Beacon Street cottages will be closing out before July 31st. And in part, as part of that process, we have to have an accounting done for and a final review of the TID district. This is required by state statute. So before you today is the understanding from our auditors, Johnson and Block, on that final audit. I was kind of hoping not to have to do this because it's a pretty simple district that I felt I could handle internally, but state statute requires us to have an audit within this building in case they would come and want to take a look at it. So in order to comply with their requirements, we will need to have Johnson Block complete that audit and put it in audit form for us. And they'll take care of that as they're going through our year-end audit here. So the cost of that, the most that the audit will cost is $4,000, just so you know. And that ER TID is closing in the negative, so it will be the general fund that pays for some of these costs. We knew that going into that district. We needed to clean that area up. It was a benefit that we did see the Beacon Street cottages go into that district. So actually it came around and was much more positive of a district than we thought it was going to be. But that's where that sits. So I would need an approval of the final audit by Johnson Block.
I'll make a motion to approve the final audit from Johnson and Block for the ER TID. Second that.
Motion's been made by John, seconded by Bob for approval of the agreement with Johnson and Block for the final accounting of ER TID number 1. All those in favor?
Aye.
Steve, I didn't see Mayor Mark.
I said aye. We're good.
Mayor Marcus, aye.
All right, motion carried. Discussion on TID districts. Judy?
All right, so we had a small discussion last finance meeting and we were visiting about TID districts. And this came up as far as what is the maximum or the maximum utilization of TID districts within our community. So I pulled up the information from the state of Wisconsin website and I provided that for you. It's actually number 6 on the slide item. So what are the limits on the use of Tiff? So we are limited to 12% of our total municipal equalized value. And then to give you a idea of what that means for the city of New London. Here it is. Just kind of did I guess I'd call it a down and dirty equal or value of where we're at with our current TID district. So we got 4 here, and that's the Retzlaff, 1.776 million in equalized. Actually, this is assessed value. We don't actually have equalized value at this point. They're very similar. Equalized can sometimes be a little bit higher. Downtown is at 441,000, TID 6, 2.8. So we're at about, almost 5.1 million. And if we take our equalized value, which is for the entire city, sits at 450 million times 12%, currently our maximum within the city for utilization of the TID revenue increments would be 54 million. We currently sit at about 16 million. So we have quite a bit of I guess, equalized value room left within the city to utilize the TID districts as a tool for getting revenue within the city and for economic development purposes. If you ever want to take a look at TID districts on the state website, it does have questions, frequently asked questions, I guess, on TID districts. And this is just one of those that I included in your packet. I actually have a few of them in here. How much it costs and all those kind of things. So TID districts are required to do certain things by state statute. So most of what is done within TID districts, we are required to do by the state of Wisconsin statutes.
What do having the TIDs, does it affect our bonding? I mean, negatively, or how would you say that the TIDs affect the bonding?
They do count against your total bonding capacity. But at this point, we have very little debt that we're looking for. Let's see, at Retzloff, we're looking at this point, no debt for that district. I just want to take a look at them as I'm speaking of them. So Retzloff, right now, we don't anticipate any debt for that. Within the downtown projects, that's where we're looking, and we're going to look at later on, we're going to look at all the road constructions, and we can talk about the debt at that point. And then TID 6, we don't anticipate any debt whatsoever. They do look at them positively as long as your debt isn't too high, because sometimes TID districts can go bad, as you've probably read in the paper sometimes. And that's where your bonding is going to cause havoc, when your revenue isn't coming in the TID district to pay the bonding. It isn't so bad if you're not paying yourself back, but if you're not paying your bonding off, that's where you're going to run into trouble. So if you have, I mean, even for the downtown, say you have $1 million and you're doing, $30 million in construction, they're going to look at that positively, because your debt to equity ratio in what you're doing as a capital project is quite high. And at this time, we anticipate some good numbers within those districts, but 4 and 6 have no debt. We don't anticipate any debt at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm. So that was to answer the question on the TID districts from last week.
On to the finance director's monthly reports. Judy?
All right, so I can page through these before the meeting, and I'll start with the expenditure report. At this point, we're about a quarter of a way through the year, so we are a quarter of the way in reporting in the year. So we are at March when you're looking at the actual reports. So you would anticipate this number to be around 25%, and that is not right. It is 31.96. For some reason, that is not calculating properly on the bottom there. But it is at 31.96% in total. And there's a lot of reasons for that at this point. Insurance is paid at the beginning of the year. But you can see a lot of these are running right within that 25% category. I'm actually going to expect this budget to be much tighter than I have seen budgets in the past, or at least we're hoping to have, a lot of employment opportunities filled here at the city. And we'll see those numbers actually come in more steady. I did take, just so you know, a look at the gasoline in each of the departments before the meeting tonight. And believe it or not, right now we are running okay. But you have to remember that when we book our gasoline, it's always 1 month behind. So we don't actually get the bill until the next month, and then it's not booked until the next month. So when we're looking at some of these numbers, we're still in February and not in March. And that's just the way things are billed. But so far, so good. And we'll just keep an eye on that. And it could be, when I'm thinking through the budget too, it could be that a lot of us are still doing some of our meetings via Zoom. And those kinds of things could help pay for gasoline. So hopefully at the end of the year, as we get closer to the end of the year and we're taking a look at that, we'll have some savings and some other items. And we'll be okay when it comes to the end of the year. Then we'll just think through that as we're budgeting for our budgeting for 2023, where we'd like to see some changes possibly in that area. But right now, I think we're all right. Yeah, any questions on any of the expenditures? Wanted to give you an example if I could. Obviously, the police department is one of our biggest users of gasoline. So here is the budget and here's the total to date. Or actually the monthly total to date. So they're at 17%. So it doesn't stick out as anything too eye-awakening, I guess is the word I want to use at this point. Any questions on any of the other expenditures? Any item on there? Then we'll move on to the revenues. And you can see that our debt service is quite high. That doesn't mean we're going to go over. We will be at 100%. We just pay more of our debt in the beginning of the year versus the end of the year. Revenues. Here also, we've already collected 70% almost of our property tax. The rest of that comes in August. Tax equivalents, most of that will come is from the utility at the end of the year. Shared revenue, some of that in July, most of it in November. That comes from the state of Wisconsin. Highway aids come quarterly. Library aids come twice a year. Everything else is looking good at this point. Interest is down. This could go up. I don't know if that's a good thing, but over time, we might see these rates actually tick up. I did hear today that rates are they're anticipating an increase in rates. I don't know if it happened today or shortly. Any questions on any of those revenues? So far, so good on those. Assigned and unassigned fund balance last month, I remember telling you that I forgot to put in this storm revenue. We saw a little bit more of revenue from the storm than we had actually booked in a receivable. So I added that in here. So we're anticipating about $400,000 sitting in the capital projects at the end of 22. So that's looking good for us for the end of 22. Because again, a lot of times we were using some of our year-end expenditure dollars within our general fund to move over to capital projects. And I'm just not sure. I'm thinking this budget's going to be much more tight than last year. So we probably won't see those kind of dollars again. Otherwise, there isn't very many changes here. We sit at about $3 million in our unassigned fund balance at the end of the year anticipated, and shared revenues at about 2 million. Our policy states that we need to be at least 1.8 million. So we're looking pretty very good there too. And we have our wheel tax. Remember, again, this is only through February, the actual collection. We are still trying to decide exactly where we're going to utilize these funds during the year. Not that there isn't anywhere that we can't utilize it. It's just where are we going to put these funds this year?
I got a feeling with the bid prices that I'm hearing going up for street reconstruction, we'll be using quite a bit of that for the Avon, Lima, and Lions, if not all of it. Just the bid opening is tomorrow for that. So we'll see how those bids shape out.
And then capital bonding. I'm still working through some of those. Capital bonding report. We still have about $1.3 million. I did add penciled in here, the library roof is anticipated to cost $140. The Newton Blackmore Trail $275, and then we did come in $100,000 of this to the library. I just added those in there quickly so that you could see what that looks like. Oh, and then the brush truck up here was originally anticipated $150. Doesn't expect that to come in nearly that much either. So we will have some dollars left in this bonding to also utilize for some of our capital projects that we'll be going over, roads and things that we're talking about here shortly.
Do we have any hail damage on our roofs?
I was going to talk about that too. So one of the things I did not add to the things I did this month or the things I'm doing, we are working through that with the insurance company. So I had the insurance company, they showed up here last Thursday. He went up and looked at some of the roofs. There is some damage. And he is I think he has like 10 roofs yet that he needs to take a look at. So he's working with the crew to see exactly where the extent of that damage, and how sad is that when we just had some of these roofs replaced. So, yeah. So I will keep you posted on that, but at this point, we're still working through what kind of damage we have in our roofs, on our roofs, I should say. So we will utilize these funds within our capital projects, like I said, and I will show you kind of a snapshot of where that's at coming up here shortly. All right, so that ends my finance director reports, and then I'm going to go right into, if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman, I will go right into the estimated road capital projects. Okay, we talked about this last month, and I said I need to show you this again so we can visualize where we're at within our anticipated road versus revenue in the next, I think we have scheduled out about 6 years at this point. Okay, so next year in 2022, I guess I want to make this bigger so I can see too. In 2022, this is an updated cost for Lyons, Lima, and Avon streets, right back here. And then what I tried to do is what funding will we utilize in order to pay for it? So we have that CDGB grant that we'll be using. Some of the bonding that I was just talking about, I'm earmarking about 250,000. Hopefully we'll have more than that to be able to put in there. Remember, at this point, these are all estimates, okay? And then wheel tax that, right now there's no specific dollar amount, but like Chad was saying, we'll probably have to throw most of wheel tax. We have some fund balance there, plus what we collect this year to use for that project. And then in 2023, and Chad's going to visit a little bit about this later too, the downtown. So Lucas, St. John's, Lincoln, State, and then possibly Mill Street, 2022, 2023, 24. And then we also committed $250,000 to the library. Here we'll probably utilize our ARPA funding. The wastewater treatment plant would be for anything that is sewer related only within there. And then in 2024, we anticipate bonding. So somehow in here, utilizing bonding possibly also too, but I'm going to try to push off. I always try to push off bonding as far out as we can. So we may borrow from ourselves until the beginning of 2024, and then push that money back in January 2024. So pay for some of it in 2023 and then pay ourselves back in 2024, saving some interest dollars. So we'll take a look at that. Then in 2024, we anticipate to go through the downtown North Water Street. We have an 80-20 grant to pay for almost $3 million of that. Tiff 5 right now is pending. We had a lot more work within getting ready for our development down there than we anticipated. So I didn't really want to stick a dollar amount in here until we know what that's going to look like. I think there's going to be some money left. It's just, what is that going to look like? And then Oshkosh Street. As you know, we received the LRIP grant funding, $2 million for Oshkosh Street. And then TIF 4 is all dedicated to Oshkosh Street. So maybe about $1 million from that TIF to help pay for Oshkosh Street. Now, how these come in the future is all up in the air. As you can see, we originally anticipated this to cost $1 million. We're at 1.6. that give you an idea of how things have skyrocketed. So, and so some of these I don't have estimates in, but it gives you a good idea about the planning that's going on. Okay, so this is where we're at, and this is what it looks like. So that way, if anyone says, you know, where are you guys going and what are you doing and how you're paying for it, you do have some idea of how, you know, especially grant funding, TIF districts, you can talk about those things. Now, just remember when, and I'm hoping that this isn't what happens, but when we originally talked about bonding in 2024 as a city, we expected to bond almost $6 million for the downtown. And we've had some big revenues come in between now and, you know, since we first talked about going into the downtown and today. So you can see that that dollar amount has actually dropped. But again, what is very concerning today is the cost of what roads are going to be going into the future. So we will continue to look at grant funding to try to, you know, meet the difference of all the inflationary factors that are going to go into our construction going into the next 2 or 3 years, and try to hit it head on with taking advantage of some of those revenue sources that the state of Wisconsin is pushing out there. And we have tried. I mean, we have tried a number of grants already, and unfortunately, we had a number of them that we've said no. They've said no, and we did get the LRIP grant, but we will continuously look at those revenue sources and try to take advantage of anything that we can, because we do realize that, you know, even though these pressures are going on within our economy, we still have to continue to move forward as a municipality. So it is heavy upon us when we take a look at this and all of the things that we have planned. But we're going to go through it and we're going to figure out what's the smartest way to go about this as we plan into our next, you know, into our future. And then in 2026 and 2027, the Pearl Street project, there is some funding that is being taken a look at for that. There was funding that was applied for. That was a no. So now we're going to go full circle and go back for some other funding that's available for this project. So again, this is just a futuristic look at what we have planned and what's on, you know, our agenda to hopefully complete within the next 6 years. And we will try to work through and try to keep moving forward on this as the years go by to not push aside, but continue moving forward with these road constructions. So I think it's important that we do that. So we are trying to diligently save ourselves, even, you know, save ourselves money on the revenue source side. As we know, these bids are going to come in much higher than we expect, you know, currently anticipate.
I just got one question. We committed to the library for that $750,000 for the annex. But so we're still gonna go forward with giving them the 750,000?
So I think that they feel that, and I guess I shouldn't speak for them. I feel that the original dollars we committed to them, they are still looking at as a picture of dollars they need in order to move forward in their current building. Because I don't think the dollar that they're gonna have to spend is that much different from what they were gonna spend on their annex. Now, we are gonna have a conversation, and Chad and we have talked to the library about the middle commitment, where those dollars, we were looking at grant funding and we were denied both the grants that we thought we were hoping we might get to help with that. So I feel like, and we should go full circle and have another committee meeting and talk about it, but it has to be a committee of the whole meeting because that's where the decision was made. But yes, we had originally said that we were going to give them or donate to them, commit to, I guess is more the better term, this year, 250 and then 250 in 2024. But in 2023 is where things are
I guess my concern is it was supposed to go towards the annex. So I mean, I
And
don't see how
will
we can
have
use
it.
this money for
Yeah.
anything else than the annex.
And we will have a committee of the whole meeting here and revisit all of that. I think that's a good idea.
Just want to know with the years and everything, we have a meeting with New London Utilities. I think we had it set up for next week. Because
Mhm.
next week or the week after, I was waiting till Robert got on board just to get him up to speed, but we need to make sure we're synchronized with utilities on their schedules as well. So after that next follow-up meeting, maybe some of this will shift a little bit, but we just want to make sure we have that conversation with the utilities, make sure we're all on the same page. So if some things shift, maybe like the Mill Street project shifts a little bit because of their capacity, be prepared, but that coordination needs to be done as well, yeah.
And then maybe sometime, yeah, we'll talk about another committee in the whole meeting to just have a discussion on financing now that things have shifted. Any other questions on this?
Okay, moving on to the financial director's report. Judy?
All right, so I filed the information for the expenditure restraint. This is filed electronically. Actually, most of the stuff is now required to the state of Wisconsin. The date is actually like not in my head. I can't find it. I sent the prior budget. So I send the prior year budget operation, the current year budget operations, and it has to be less than a percentage in order for us to qualify. And we did qualify again for, and this would be a 2024 payment, actually. I attended webinars and YouTube meetings for the U.S. Department of Treasury for the ARPA, the American Rescue Act, state and local recovery funds. So annually, now that we receive those ARPA fundings, I have to report to the federal government and let them know where we're at and how are we going to spend it and those kinds of things. And that was due by the end of the month, and or they would not pay us our second payment. And then I guess I just gave you a reminder that was $742,000. In June of 21, we received half. June of 22, we get our second half. Continue to work with Chad and the attorney and Phil on TID 4, 5, and 6. And then getting ready for discussion on my final joint review board for Tiff and all those submissions to the state. I attended a CIVMIC, our insurance companies, cities and villages, their strategic planning as a board member. I enter the audit entries at the end of 2020 so that I'm ready for the state financial report. The state financial report is a report I have to fill out to the state of Wisconsin. I call it the tax return for the city because I have to report to them all of our revenues and all of our expenditures in certain categories. So I fill in all that information and then submit that to the state. I spent time looking at the Capitol Road Plan and updating that meeting for tonight. And a lot of internal meetings as they arise. And then the last thing I want to talk about was the insurance. So I'm working through that, got a hold of our adjuster, working through. So when we have any kinds of claims within the city, it's important that we get to them and that we keep moving forward. So it's just a lot of, please, can you please work with the adjuster? Then we'll take the information in and I'll compile it because we have a $15,000 deductible. So I'll take the information in, make sure that we have a spreadsheet of everything that's going on, dollar amounts, all those kind of things. Keep that all together so that we make sure that at the end of the day that we're being reimbursed what we anticipated being reimbursed. Now, the utility also had some roof replacement, some damage, some hail damage, and they sit on our policy. So I also insure them. So we'll probably somehow divide that deductible, probably by damage or whatever that cost is. And we'll each take a percentage of what that looks like. So yes, we are working through that. That was unexpected and I didn't think about it until Jay actually said something. Then it was like, oh geez. And then I put a email to Chad like, hey, we have to look at our roofs and see if we have any damage. So yeah, we're working through that process also.
So do we own the buildings that the utilities use?
We do not own, well, yeah, we do.
Okay.
Yes, we do.
Interesting.
They are actually like a subsidiary of us, correct? Anytime they bond, we have to sign their paperwork. So, yes,
It's in the name of the utility, but it's, the utility is a city-owned utility, so.
correct. It is a city-owned utility. So we take care of a lot of their stuff for them. I shouldn't say a lot, some of their stuff. for them.
Thank you, Judy.
You're welcome.
I'll need a motion to move into closed session for the following statutory exemptions, 19.85(1)(e). Deliberating or negotiating and purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public services whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session.
So move. Second.
Motion been made by Mike, seconded by Bob. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're now in the closed session.
Okay, Steve, we're gonna go in closed session. We can't keep the mics open for you for the public, so you'll have to hang out and wait until we go back into open session.
I feel so left out. Okay. All right.
All right, we are back in open session.
No motion, no statement. I'll put
Steve, you
that
still
in
with
the
us?
I really missed you guys so much.
Probably had an old fashioned, so.
Moving question and answers.
We didn't really take an action.
Yeah, so I just put that.
All right, so moving on to questions.
I got a question. I know, was it Public Works? We were talking about doing garbage pickup, large item pickup. Is there a way we can find a couple grand in the budget?
Is there something to look into for us? I know there was talking 5 dumpsters, there is $400. City staff, so like 2-3 grand.
I haven't even talked to Judy about that conversation.
It's just something that, you know, everybody really is, you know, wanting, and I'd like to see if we could find a way to, you know, budget it in, or, you know, if there was a way.
The plan for that was bring it back up to Board of Public Works next month again that's what the direction at Monday night's meeting. So we're gonna talk about that.
I guess.
I haven't talked to Judy about that yet.
And then I think that's where we'll invite Judy in.
Yeah.
I think what we're thinking, what Tim's saying is it don't pay to go to Board of Public Works if there's no way we can come up to money.
Well, it's not on the agenda, so let's not get too far into it. But yes, Tim, we'll definitely look at how to do that project.
I will get myself educated on the subject and I will let you know.
Any other questions? If not, need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion been made by Tim, seconded by John. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thanks, Steve.